remember, it's kind of funny you bring that chronologically up in terms of going from high school to the pros, because I remember when we recruited him and then when we got him, and I remember after like maybe the first year, I remember one time for some reason I think we were hosting another prospect and I was giving him a ride, and he asked me, he said, "Do you really think I have a chance to make it to the NFL?" I said, "Well, if you keep your attitude the way you have it now, where you want to work, we're big into changing your best around here and getting a little bit better every day. If you stick to that attitude, yes." And so I guarantee he remembers that conversation, because I think that was the first time he asked and the first time he really started thinking about maybe I can be a pro. So, I mean, in terms of him, he's got a great knack of being coachable in this sense that, like we'll coach him hard and get after him if he, made a mistake or whatever when he was younger, but he could bounce back and he never let that affect him, and he kept working to get better. So
he's got an interesting backstory, and I want to get into a lot of his stuff that he did in college, but he did beat some odds growing up in Kansas City, and the family, they went through a lot. It was him and a bunch of siblings with a single mom, and they were bouncing around, and he's told his story many times. I think it's very inspirational about what he went through, and he never let it stop him. He did go through some obstacles, some things that most people, maybe would discourage them, but he instead, he worked his butt off and became a, really good recruit, and, did what he did at Minnesota to be a third-team All-American. But it wasn't easy for him or his family. When you were recruiting him, did you kind of get to know the whole thing and kind of what the family had gone through?
Yeah, in particular his mom. His mom is very, very important to him. She's a wonderful lady. I do know that there's some obstacles, and, as a coach, you always, you try to do everything you can to make sure that your players have the support that they need, etc. I always felt like, even though they maybe didn't have much, he definitely, in particular, his mom has been a rock for him. Somebody that's inspired him, she's always somebody that I think he's always talked about and made sure that their relationship was really solid.
That's great. And he wanted to be a basketball player at one point. Like a lot of guys, they've got, as he said, I had hoop dreams. But then, he got bigger and bigger. He's a lineman, and I think it sounds like he accepted, hey, I'm not going to be like the next Shaquille O'Neal. Maybe I could be the next Laramie Tunsil or one of these guys. But, he definitely had the basketball background. He's nice and tall. He's, I think, 6'6" and some change.
Yeah, he's about 6'7".
Yeah.
But I kind of laugh at what you're saying, because, he thinks he was some basketball guy. We kind of debate that a little bit here and there. We had one time we had a 3-point contest, and he put his hand up right away, and probably a third of the room was like, no, we're getting somebody else. So, because I think he's probably more like a wrestler thinking that he can play basketball. So,
hey, sometimes it's how the world sees you, right?
That's right. Not always how you see yourself.
Yep. He did a good job. And, once he didn't play a lot for you at first, but once he was in the lineup, that was it. It was like almost like obviously when you're in a big program like yours, there's, upperclassmen and good linemen. And
but that's interesting you bring that up, because I feel like, in good programs, you're gonna be developed for a year or two, and then play, 4 to 3 years. And so his track, I think, was right on target in terms of, we were a good offensive line. We've been a good offensive line, arguably really, really good offensive lines. And so it wasn't like he was waiting his turn. I think that is a combination of him being developed, and that we did have some players that were able to, that were there in front of him, so to speak. But we knew from the day we started working with him that he was going to be special. It was just getting him to reach his potential. And, he did start one game as a true freshman against Nebraska, and it was one of our favorite wins because we had it was during the COVID, where I think we were down to like 6 or 7 linemen for the game. And so he started as a true freshman, and it was a little bit fast for him at first, but then as the game went on, he sped up and was able to be a part of a really special victory. And, and then we still had a lot of players coming back, like you talked about, Daniel Falalele and John Michael Schmidt. So we were pretty good. And, finally he starts as a redshirt sophomore, and he ends up, being a great player. And so I feel like, at this position, he did a great job of maximizing his potential.
And the rest is history. Now he's an NFL football player.
That's right.
You look at a lot of games, because like Nick Caserio was saying, I asked him about this after the draft. I said, I know in the Big Ten you play a lot of, great players. There's so many good edge rushers. I could go through each team and say, yeah, that guy, he's a dude. But Abdul Carter, one of the best. And when they played, he stonewalled him. He more than held his own. He did a very good job. Did that game, it probably didn't surprise you at all because you know what he's capable of. Did that game say something to you?
Definitely, but I think he just did what he was capable of doing, like you said. And, obviously Abdul Carter's a great player, and, we had to game plan to make sure that we accounted for him, and, Penn State did a good job of moving him around and such, but there was plenty of times that they went head-to-head, and, I definitely feel like that Aireontae more than held his own against him.
That's awesome. He ran a 5.01 at 331 pounds. That is moving. I mean, that is a good technique and a lot of explosiveness. And hopefully he never has to run 40 yards in a game. But it says
140. Unless you guys do some conditioning
down
at Houston that we didn't do here.
It is hot here. I'm telling you what, he's gonna definitely be running a lot. It's practice is it's not easy with Coach D'Amico Ryans. They have tough practices, and the new head offensive line coach Popovich is a Dante Scarnecchia, a disciple from New England. So I know he'll get great coaching, and we got Nick Caley calling the plays, so there'll be some Rams and Josh McDaniels stuff.
Is a great friend of mine.
Oh, nice. So you guys know each other?
Oh, yeah. Known each other for a long time. And, I'm very proud of Nick. And, obviously, I knew that they had brought him in for an interview. But, I'm just excited that Aireontae's got an opportunity to be a part of a great offense with Nick.
He might not have to start at left tackle immediately. They're going to kind of see where he fits the best, and they'll compete. That's the idea, is they have better competition than they had before, where they kind of just pick the starters and that was it. But it's going to be different now. They want it to be more of a competitive environment. But, they've got a good veteran named Cam Robinson that I think he can learn a lot from. And, it should be a really good situation for him because he goes to a division champion and very established, stable kind of place, and they're overhauling the line, and everything's a fresh start. So, he'll, from day one, maybe he's starting, or maybe they're telling him, hey, we're going to have you get your feet wet. I don't know yet. I think they're still trying to kind of figure that out as far as the early playing time once everybody's out there together. But it's a whole new line. Everything is very different. Tunsil's traded, Shaq Mason cut, and, he comes in, I think, as a foundational piece for them and the future blindside protector for C.J. Stroud, Ohio State guy. And, I think it's a golden opportunity for him. And if anything, probably better off being picked, where he was picked than maybe going to a team, that's not as competitive. So, I think it's a good situation for him.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, he was the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. There are a lot of good linemen. I mean, I watch Big Ten football, so I get to see the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Penn States, and you guys. And even though I'm an SEC country, there's the cable. You can see everybody. But for him to win that award, what did that mean to you all? Because that's something that not very many guys get to do.
It's a great testament to what he was able to do, and that the conference recognized that, and that you're right. Those logos of some of those schools that you just mentioned, Historically, people would think of them more so than maybe us. But I'll tell you, people recognize that we do a great job here in the Big Ten Conference with developing the position. And, Aireontae obviously winning that award is like a huge deal to us. And we're very proud of the development that we've done here with all our players. And, it was great that they were able to recognize him for being the best offensive lineman last year.
Before we got started, you were telling me that recruiting story, and you were talking about that mega camp over at Lindenwood in the St. Louis area. What do you remember about that day, the first time you kind of saw him toward the end of the camp, and what made him stick out to you, and kind of what was the recruiting process for you all to sign him?
Well, I think it's very interesting because, like I mentioned to you, this is one of these camps where there's a ton of kids, and they roll like 3 sessions a day. So it's, Friday morning, Friday, late morning, early afternoon, and Friday into the evening, and then the same thing again on Saturday. Well, I'll be honest, most of the coaches had left, and there weren't many. It's probably the least attended by the prospects, and I'm like, watching them do broad jump, and sure enough, Aireontae stood out, and I'm like, damn. And so I watched him, and I had our offense coordinator at the time. I said, hey man, keep your eyes on. We kid around because Coach Fleck always remembers the story because he was wearing these blue shorts, and so to this day, all these years later, he still kiddingly says, well, keep an eye on little blue shorts. So we got out of him, and then we started developing a relationship. Obviously, watched his high school tape from Ruskin. He had some decent tape, but we also felt like there's some raw material there that we could really develop. And we were his first Power 5 at that time offer, and then he started getting some after that, but we had developed a relationship, got him up on the visit, and he ended up committing, and long story short, the rest is history.
Hey, and I think this guy, as much as anybody, definitely exemplified what PJ Fleck would talk about. Row the boat is something that goes back to losing his son, but also just kind of the mentality for the program. I think it's really typified what people think about when they think of Gopher football with the attitude, because I think linemen especially, it's a mentality, and you can kind of tell he's just this no-nonsense dude at the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's in a 60-minute fight with you.
Yeah. Well, we take a lot of pride in our culture here and what we've been able to do through the years. And, at the end of the day, it's about changing your best on a daily basis and holding each other to standards. And we always talk about that. And, that's not easy to do. Everybody says they want to do it, but actually doing it is the difference. And I think that's what's led us to be, successful and consistent. And, we're not satisfied where we're at. We know we want to keep getting better and keep taking this program to the next level.
Absolutely, Brian. Yeah, I think it's the approach, whether you're coaching, whether you do media or whatever you like to do. You can be the equipment manager, but yeah, if you don't care about it and you're not committed and you don't have a plan, you won't be very successful. You don't carry out anything. A lot of people want to do stuff, but they don't have the inventory and the heart to do it. But it really is, when you're up there, and it's not easy to do what he's doing or to coach these guys to do what they do. But yeah, I think when I watch him, I get excited, just watching the tape of him and then talking with him, getting pumped up, because you just kind of see the enthusiasm he has. I don't know him like you do. I just had a Zoom with him one time, but I'm hearing really good things and just liking the vibe I'm getting. What is the personality like?
I mean, he's a wonderful young man. I mean, he's like you say, he's just a lot of fun to be around. He's got a good way about himself, good teammate. All the guys liked him. He never was like he's a guy that is going to carry himself, and he's not overly cocky by any means, and just a good guy.
What should he work on? Everybody, you're really tall. It is hard to to be that knee bender, to get low. The D linemen, traditionally, they're not as tall as you. They are, they're trying to get under your pads. They try to spin around you. They try to do all sorts of things. Some of these guys run 4.4, and they might weigh 250, but they're like 6'2", 6'1". They have a different kind of build, and I kind of feel like the defensive ends and the running backs, pound for pound, are some of the best athletes you see on the field. But what do you think he could continue to get better at? Is it pad level? Is it anything at all? Or I read some scouting report. They were talking about how he handles and redirects when maybe somebody has a counter move. But I think you could probably say that about most linemen. But it seems like there's no real weakness, just things you just keep getting better at.
Well, I think at his best he's unbelievable, and I think it's being consistent with using his techniques and God-given ability, and they'll figure out specifically what they want him to get better at, and I just think he's got a bright future.
He's a left tackle, and to me, he's a pure left tackle. But they say if you're a lineman, you're a lineman. Could you see him playing anywhere else? Do you think he could kick inside? Do you think he could move to the right side if he had to? If they just positionally wanted to go with the vet for now, but wanted to get him out there as one of the best five?
I'm sure he could. I think he's a tackle, but I do think that he has the ability to play elsewhere. I feel like he's he could play definitely guard for sure. And I've been asked that question by a lot of people.
Yeah, they're interested in that. That's interesting. Well, now the Texans have a new fan in the Twin Cities. As you got, it's like one of your sons graduated to the NFL.
That's right, for several reasons. I do love Nick Taylor, and I feel like he's got a bright future too.
Where did you meet Nick? Where was the first time you came across Nick?
Well, we were at Akron together.
Okay, that's where you worked together. Gotcha.
And then we were at Eastern Illinois together.
So you have a big background with him. Wow.
And I remember when Nick made the transition from defense to offense, just several conversations about that experience. So, but Nick is just, I'm so proud of him. I had nothing to do with any of his success. I just, being a friend and being able to witness him being able to do what he's doing, and then with Aireontae being there now, and I just, I'm definitely going to be a Texans fan.
That's cool. Maybe, maybe you get a chance to come to a game at some point. Your schedule's pretty tough with the way it overlaps, but you never know. Maybe it'll work out, or training camp or spring ball or something like that. I'm sure they'd love to have you. With Nick, a lot of times I've had conversations with people, whether it was Sean McVay or with when he was at Florida Atlantic, he recruited Azeez Al-Shires, the team captain and linebacker here, or even back to his student assistant days. I have some people I know that work at John Carroll University, which is produced a lot of great people like Nick and Nick Caserio and Frank Ross, and the list goes on and on. We got so many people from that college. I think there's like 5 of the guys working here on the staff, whether it's scouting or coaching with the Texans. So yeah, JCU is strong here. But yeah, everybody says Nick is going to do great things, and he's got his own ideas, but they're going to be kind of a matchup team. They're going to change the game plan a little bit like what New England did back in the day. You just change it every week. You don't want to have a lot of tendencies. You want to be able to self-scout and scout the opponent well. And everyone, I know he's going to be his first year running it, but I think he's very well trained and well prepared for the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to do well.
Yes, sir.
But, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, Aaron. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.